Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, we have some news coming out of Kingdom 339 with UHA, and apparently something big is going down as this started to kind of make its public rounds a number of days ago, starting at least for where I first saw it in the official COD Discord. And apparently, there's going to be some splitting and some separating happening here. Now, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up, because it helps out a lot. But aside from that, if you or someone you know has a story out there they'd like to share, whether it's in regards to a kingdom, a KVK, something else, please feel free just to let me know. You can always reach out to me on Discord. Okay, let's dive into some of the particulars, and then we're going to show you off some stuff along the way. First, let's start with the mail. Now, the mail here that was sent, we have is from Godluck, who is also the King's List Guard or King's Guard representatives that I have on my Discord, right? So either is the R5 or one of the co-R5s, I believe, but at least was able to represent the kingdom on the King's Guard list, which is kind of similar to the Hall of Kings that the COD Discord runs. So Godluck says from UHA, you see this is 5 days ago on the 1st of August. Hello, everyone. This will be our last season as UHA. It means we will still play this season, but at the end of it, we will call it off. As you already know from my previous decree, there was intention to make a merger happen and keep as many as possible together through that. Unfortunately, due to multiple people, I believe, that are seeking for options individually, and I guess people are individuals, that are seeking different options, we have decided to call it off as we couldn't give an estimate over what we can bring to that kingdom, and it is also wasn't going to be what we hoped it would be. Okay. With that being said, at the end of the season, UHA will disband. Everyone will have to look for a place of their own, as this merger isn't happening. I can't help much. However, based on the discussions we had over the merger with 314, right? This is OO, Squiggly Eyes / Sheesh. This is where YY's account was, the second strongest player in the game. Even if I'm not going there personally, they are willing to take in fighters. According to our discussions, they still have a solid core and solid team. Recruitment for them also seems to be promising for upcoming period, but I'm sure if you are interested, you will ask all the questions necessary for you to make a proper decision. If you have interest to join them, right, contact Puppet, they're R5. So basically, I think the first thing that needs to be stated here is that UHA is basically having a fire sale. So if you haven't caught on already, get there ASAP Rocky as fast as possible and start reaching out to some people, because this is, again, probably a good recruiting opportunity for some kingdoms that are looking to fill out fighters depending on what tier you are under. So go and enjoy a fresh crop of cattle for your pickings. Yeah, that probably sounded pretty aggressive. With that out of the way. Food aside, because I am hungry. The next part I want to touch on here is the part where, right, they were planning the merger and then called it off because they just weren't able to kind of get an accurate number head count. You had probably multiple groups or individuals that were just looking to kind of do their own thing. It does make me wonder how this all really went, right, behind the scenes. And as always, right, some of the questions I will always look to ask initially is, did you make an honest and earnest effort to purge? Did you make an honest effort to trim the fat? Because we've seen examples. I think most notably was kind of the purging disbanding project that we interviewed Blood Reina on, who plays over in 110 with ROG. And they were able to stay within their home kingdom, didn't have to move, didn't necessarily need to do any merging, at least at this time, and they were able to trim a lot of their fat off within their first wave. Now, it should be stated that doesn't always mean that every kingdom will be able to do that, right? There could be a number of things that are out of your control, the most obvious being people that just don't want to leave, right? And even if you zero them, even if you attack them, their power, right, as long as they participate, and because there's no way that you could really stop them to a degree from participating within the KVK. I mean, maybe if you just didn't allow them, maybe in certain alliances, I guess if the warband right doesn't extend beyond, I guess possibly you could maybe limit them to the starting zone in some capacity. However, if they are able to continuously place top 150, that goes into them basically being safeguarded from getting discharged, right? How much more can you really do at that point? And if there ends up being too many people that just don't want to leave, right? Or they're not leaving because they expect you to pay for their passports or permits to leave. I mean, again, you can kind of see where this is going. You could have multiple reasons on how things can kind of spiral or just not go the way that you intended. And so if you're not in a situation where you can discharge and have players migrate out in a comfortable way, let's say, that makes it easier for you to choose and decide that, okay, we're going to stay in the home kingdom and we're just going to work on restructuring, rebuilding. Let's bring in some fresh blood, right? Let's help the people that are not as active, inactive, maybe not contributing to fighting as much as we can to move them out. And if that can't happen, then yeah, I understand. I can understand that if all those options have been exhausted. Now, like I said, I don't know all the inner workings there on UHA. I don't know how much of an effort they put in or how much they didn't. How do some of the other members feel within the alliance on what they saw or what they didn't see happening? Do they agree with the decision being made to basically disband? I can only imagine there has to be a number of people here that have probably played many, many seasons together. It's not to say that there was an absolute way to get out of this or to troubleshoot and work around. But like I said, those are some of the things we don't know. I think the other part to me is when they talk about the merger, right? Where I think you can kind of pick some things apart here when you think about the fact that they were opting to go to another kingdom versus another kingdom coming to them. That typically indicates, more likely than not, that there were some obstacles that were maybe just too much to overcome, some hurdles that were maybe just too big for them to be able to have or to feel comfortable with people coming there, right? It usually means that you're not as lean, maybe you're not as clean overall as you'd like to be when it comes to your kind of engagement, your participation, maybe your PvP engagement. Again, maybe how much fat the kingdom has, and maybe they opted to go somewhere else that is a little leaner, right? But to me, that is an indicator. I think the third part that we could talk about, right, is the fact that is not only that they're disbanding, but that they opted to go to 314 that they were talking about. And they said after discussions, they have a solid core, which is interesting because of the YY situation, which obviously with removing all the troops, it definitely helps 314 and puts them in a better position than if he basically pulled a Satoru on Neff's account and didn't do anything with the troops and then just kind of having the account just kind of be dead in there, right? At least if you're just kind of comparing those two different parallels. So yeah, maybe 314 is in a better place now with everything happening. And so I guess my point there is, I guess now let me get to my second screenshot, right? So someone, this was something that had went down on the Discord, right? So someone said a lot of people are going to EIS and to Squiggly Eyes, right? This is what Bunny said. They got disappointed due to a loss in row. And then Dragon Sister also says the same thing, right? Yeah, this is true. Quoting a lot are going to OO and EIS. Dragon's like, EIS on top soon. ES will finally be Asia Power. okay. So some of these comments, man, are funny. Okay. So that's where some of the people are going. Again, even if it's not all of them. Like I said, it's basically a fire sale at this point. Now, if we look at where UHA on the last time we did a data pool, this was on the 12th of April. they ranked, and this was what, so 4 months ago, a little less than 4 months ago, they ranked 19th, right? They were at 15.4 billion power based on a top 300, removing 15 million below accounts for farms. That's not bad. I mean, they were their top kingdom. Even on my most recent, on like a recent data sheet, I think they placed around 41 or 42 for top 300 power. And again, right, and that was as of a month ago, right? That's where they placed out of total kingdoms. So sure, they've lost kind of double their positions, but still was pretty well. I think they were at like 13.7 or 13.8 or something like that, but that was as of a month ago, right? So again, still right, a B seed kingdom, right? A little bit above, probably like low to like low mid B seed, but still, right, a decent size. So yeah, I guess all of that to say, and that's the thing, we don't always know what the inner workings are. We don't always know how tight of a ship or not tight of a ship, or what's really going on with the players or the groups. But I do find it fascinating. That's one of the things I absolutely like. Again, I'll probably reach out to Godluck at some point and just ask and say, hey, I'd love to just kind of sit down and, if you're willing to kind of walk me through everything, or maybe even afterwards, right? Sometimes it might be more appropriate to kind of do things after the fact. So maybe it's something I'll ask, but maybe we'll wait too as well, because sometimes it's easier to speak about a situation once everything's kind of done and over with and you've kind of already, finished out your transition period. But knowing kind of the logic and what the mindset was and the approach behind, okay, this is how we came to the decision of feeling like we needed to merge. Okay, well, let's talk about that. How did that happen, right? What did we exhaust? What did we not exhaust? For me, I love asking those questions and I love knowing the why behind, because I think it can be very illuminating for players out there, future management teams of kingdoms, to know like what happened here. How can we maybe avoid it and try to do some things that can mitigate or eliminate this possible path of going down, whether we end up there or not. And then what can we take away, right? What can we learn from it? For me, all of those things I find incredibly educational. And especially when you're playing in a game that has hundreds to thousands of kingdoms, right? Eventually, I imagine COD will, as long as it keeps going, just like Rock has, thousands of kingdoms. You get to a point where you're really trying to kind of min-max your efficiency within a kingdom. And one of the most important things that you should always be trying to achieve in any kingdom is to have high player activity and low player retention. Or sorry, high player retention, excuse me, right? But low player drop-off, that's what it is. High player retention, low player drop-off. And right, because you want as many people to stay in the kingdom as possible. There's always going to be things that come up, right? Anything IRL that could happen, right, can obviously cause people to stop playing or to quit or lower their activity. Those are all kind of normal things, I like to believe. But when you have, and those are kind of things that are outside of the game. But the things that we can control, right, what I view as controllable are the things that we can do inside the game, internally, within the alliance, within the kingdom, within your management team. Those are things that can be the difference between whether a player and or a group stays in the kingdom for another season or multiple seasons or leaves. And so, like I said, there's obviously a lot we don't know. But for me, I love talking about these things and having these conversations, because even if we don't know too much, we can at least talk out some general situations and what may or may not have happened and kind of how we can apply and maybe learn from some of those situations as well. So if you're in 339, if you are in UHA and you want to share your perspective on how you saw things play out, on what happened, feel free to leave a comment below. You're more than welcome to reach out to me on Discord too as well. If anyone from the management team there would like to maybe sit down and have a conversation, again, right? As just like I said, as a great kind of learning educational opportunity to kind of talk about, how things played out, what you saw, how you arrived at this, why you felt this is the best way to go forward, right? Let me know. Like I said, I absolutely would love to. That is going to do it for me. As always, until next time, we will catch you later. And by we, I mean I, because I'm the only one here. But it's we in the general sense, right? I mean, maybe it's like multiple personalities. Who knows? Okay, I'm done. Goodbye.